You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.
Welcome to Line Noise. On today's show, we're joined by Nicolette, who is one of the very best vocalists in electronic music and a brilliant producer and lyricist to boot. Her debut album, Now Is Early, was one of the first jungle albums combining hardcore with jazz, soul, and so much more. She recorded vocals for 2 Massive Attack songs on their second album, Protection, and her second solo album, Let No One Live Rent-Free in Your Head, is an utter lost classic. She has a new album, The Infinitive, coming out soon, and she joined us to talk torch songs, jungle, anarchy, and much more. But it's really nice. It's really nice to speak to you today. I've followed your music for ages. I mean, you know, since the early 90s, certainly, and I've always been a big fan. So it's really, really great to speak to you. I wanted, if you don't mind, to sort of go right back to the start. And your first single came out in 1990, right?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I was living in Cardiff just before then. I moved to London, in 1990 because I wanted to get a record deal because I was like just doing kind of the odd gigs here and there in Cardiff, and I knew I wanted to, kind of get a record deal and get my stuff out more and do something different. So I moved to London, and then I just was asking around, basically, does anyone know of anywhere I can get a record deal? And then someone just said, there's this group called Shut Up and Dance. They're doing like auditions and stuff, and I'd said to myself, I really want to do music that's I wanted to do some of the music that I was hearing, kind of the electronic dance music I was hearing, but I also wanted it to have a hip hop influence, but I didn't know how this was going to happen. So I was just kind of like, well, I'll just see what I can get. And someone else said they were having auditions, and I was like, I didn't even know who they were. I mean, I'd heard their music because I was a big raver and stuff, and but I didn't know it was them, So when I got there, they just kind of like, I didn't think I'd, get it or anything. But my friend was just like, just go. So I just went, and they just put like this. They just played some tracks, and I just kind of improvised over them, and that was it.
Did you in any way try to adjust what you did to be more like ravey or more electronic, or?
No, I wouldn't even know how to do that. I mean, that's the thing. I'm so like deficient in that kind of, I don't know, that kind of gene or tendency. I have no idea how to do that kind of thing. So I just did what I was doing. And that's what happened, and that's what I still do. And whether people like it or not, I just like, just keep my fingers crossed. But it's really, I just did, what I knew, what was coming through, really. So yeah.
And Now Is Early, which was your first album, is beautifully unusual because it's kind of, I've heard it described as basically torch songs meets hardcore, which is really kind of unusual. I mean, how did you get to that sound?
I didn't really think about it. I just did what was in my mind, my being, my heart. I don't know what. And then I was I really didn't think about my process at all. I just did whatever felt right. So that was just my mode of expression at that time. I don't know what that means. Torch song, means hardcore, but. I know I love the hardcore sound, and I love break beats at that time as well. I was really into hip hop and stuff at that time, and but I also wanted to do electronic music because I wanted to do something that was I wanted to participate in this new sound that was kind of emerging and stuff, and so it was perfect. Even though I didn't realize, how you just kind of wish for something and then you don't really think about it, and then it happens sort of, but not in a way you're so like not aware. So I was just really doing what came to me and what felt, and what I was lucky because the boys from Shut Up and Dance, Smiley and PJ were really like approved of my. It was a good start, because like if I'd gone into a situation where they were like, no, this isn't right, or this, this you can't do this, then I would have been really uncomfortable. I wouldn't have known how to, but they gave me like they were really approving of my expression, and they gave me like, creative license, if you like, and stuff. And that was really good to start that way. Start my recording career that way.
I was looking back and I was trying to think if there was even any albums like that released at the time. Like, I mean, if people go back to, what the first jungle or drum and bass or album is, I can't think of any earlier than that.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, my thing is that because I've always considered myself to be like a pop artist. And so I'm always like about the verse and chorus and the hooks and that kind of thing. And so I always, whatever I'm doing, I bring that sensibility to it, because I'm all about the hooks, because I love hooks, and I think they're important for songs. And so I think that sensibility wasn't prevalent then, or I don't know if it became prevalent later or at all. But I think that what was different, one of the things that was different, apart from my voice, but one of the other things that was different about what I was doing was that I was actually putting full songs into dance music and stuff, rather than one-liners and stuff like that.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I really, really love about your music are the lyrics, and I'm thinking, I mean, there's many examples, but for example, No Government, which obviously on the first two albums appears to be or something like a sort of ode to anarchy, which isn't something.
No, it isn't.
No, what is it about?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not a no. I don't even know what anarchy means. I mean, I'm not that informed, but I mean, I don't, I mean, as a political movement or anything like that, I have no idea. So but I mean, I'm not about that anyway. But definitely, it's about it's basically about like self-trust, because I think so. If there's any anarchy at all in anything that I do, it's just this kind of wanting to remind people that we are wise and powerful and beautiful, and ultimately we should trust ourselves, because I think society has in the past encouraged us to not do that, and to not love ourselves, not value ourselves and stuff. And what I was saying, I think one of the things I was saying in that song was really like, if we valued ourselves and we trusted ourselves, to that point, and we knew how powerful and amazing we are, we wouldn't need to be told what to do, or to have, I mean, it's not that we wouldn't have structures, but they'd be much more geared towards what was good for us. It would be a whole different paradigm, because we wouldn't look to other people to understand our truth, or to tell us what the truth is, because we know it, because we all know it fundamentally inside of us. So it was something along those lines that I was trying to say. I think maybe the title No Government was just something that I don't know, just maybe, I was reading a book at that time and it had the words no government in it or something. I think I was reading a book that Smiley's had, and I was just, because when I'm in the studio kind of like waiting for them to line up everything so I can see, well, in those days, I mean, now it's a bit different, but I just kind of like read, or kind of like, just try to occupy myself. And I think there was a book that Smiley had, which was, I can't remember what it was about really, but I think that it kind of inspired the title somewhere, somehow, but I can't remember exactly how. But it was really about, that it was that we have to, I mean, don't have to, I mean, obviously it's not obligatory, but to create a society and a life that is optimal for all of us, all of us as people and individually. We have to kind of get back to that place of like self-trust and self-appreciation and to trust our innate knowing, basically, which is a beautiful and powerful.
You work with Massive Attack as well on Protection.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did they just hear your records and like them? Or?
Yeah, I think they heard, basically that was it. Because I was really surprised when they asked me to work with them, because I mean, our music was so different. We were in totally different spheres of music, I mean, it's electronica, I guess it's like the commonality there, but it was just so different. So they heard, I think, Wicked Mathematics, my fourth single, or so I think it was Wicked Mathematics they heard. And they liked my voice, so they just asked me to kind of like, to do that, to work with them on that album,
And what was it like working with them?
It was nice. It was it was very different from working with Shut Up and Dance, because with Shut Up and Dance it was like, because they were like signed to a major label and stuff, and so it was a whole different context. It was like really slow, because with Shut Up and Dance, we go to the studio and work for like and finish a song in one day. I mean, obviously it'd been written and everything, but it would be mixed. We recorded and mixed in one day. And with Massive Attack was completely. I was like, when are we going to finish recording these songs? It's like it's in the studio. I mean, I didn't mind but it just felt really luxurious, compared to my thing with Shut Up and Dance. And it was a different. I mean, the process was similar because they just gave me backing tracks and told me to write stuff to them, so which is what Shut Up and Dance used to do. But yeah, it felt very leisurely and very and more luxurious, let's say. yeah.
I was looking at your catalogue on Discogs, and in 1993 there was a single called "Stars in My Eyes," and it said something that was from an album called "Luxury and Desires."
Oh yeah, that album never happened. there was like a period between my first album and my second, between my first album and my working with Massive Attack, that where I was trying to find another record deal. I wasn't really sure what I wanted and how I was going to do it. So I had this. I was looking for a concept for my next album and stuff, and I kind of like decided that it could be Luxury and Desires, just that would encapsulate, basically. I guess that was like, because I was feeling like poor at the time, and because I didn't have a record deal, and I was like, what am I doing? But I started writing as soon as even before I kind of like I left my deal with Massive Attack, with Shut Up and Dance, I was writing kind of new songs and stuff, and I was just trying to find a new voice for myself, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to kind of like just reach more people, but I didn't know kind of what I wanted to do to express myself. So I started writing songs, and I got a deal, like I got a couple of deals for like Stars in My Eyes, and stuff. And then I realized that wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, even though, I was happy with this. I mean, I liked the song, let's say, but it wasn't the direction I wanted to go in at all. I wanted to do something completely different, like something a bit more, I don't know, left field, or angular, if you like. So I kind of let that go, and but then Rough Trade kind of like put out a couple the single, and obviously we got signed to another label as well. I say we because my manager kind of sorted it out for me, my then manager at the time.
And then in 1996, you released what was your second album, Let No One Live Rent Free in Your Head.
Yeah.
For me, again, it seems like a very different experience, because the first album was, I believe, all produced by Shut Up and Dance. On the second one, you reached out to various different people. You produced some things yourself. There was Plaid, and there For Hero and Alec Empire. Was that a conscious decision, like you wanted to do things with more people?
Well, I'd love to say that my decisions are that conscious, but they're really not. At the time, I was just kind of like thinking. I was looking for a producer, but then I thought, but then several were suggested to me. I mean, because I was just asking around. That's what I usually do when I haven't got a clue, basically. And I was like, what producers? So someone suggested Plaid. And then they suggested other people as well, and I was like, well, I kind of would like to work with all of them, So I just kind of like did stuff with them, and then it turned out Felix I already knew, and we were going to do some stuff together anyway, so we'd already done that. And who else was on there? Alex. Alex I'd heard his stuff, like his Atari Teenage Riot stuff, and I was like, I really, really want to work with this guy. He's amazing. I was really and still am into kind of like really hardcore techno, and at that time I really wanted to do stuff, even though some people were like, that's not advisable. But I love the contrast of my voice, which is quite soft, and my energy is quite soft in a way, but with hardcore stuff, I just think it's beautiful.
I always thought that was kind of the boldest choice on that, because it worked really, really well. But I think I think I always got the impression it could not have worked, if you see what I mean. I mean, it did, but like it seemed like very, as you said, two very different things.
Well, I don't really mind, whether it works or not. I just have to do it if I feel like it. And then if it works, it's all good. And if it doesn't work, it's all good. It's not the end of the world either. And I don't even know what that means if it works, because, some people will just hate it anyway. There's a friend of mine who just still hates those songs till today. And that's okay, but it's really, I guess, for me, if it works for me, then that's really kind of like where, I mean, obviously I want people to feel them as well. I really want people to feel my music really more than think about what it's, how it's made, or what it's composed of, or anything like that. I want people to just kind of just feel it.
What emotion do you want to provoke?
Well, I'm not thinking of provoking particular emotions, but I want people to take whatever they need from it, like something wholesome, something really wholesome that's going to kind of like feed their soul, in some kind of way, heal them or help them or whatever they need, basically just like to for them to know, just get to get that knowing of themselves, that feeling that they really know, who they are, and that, and how their own worth and beauty. So whatever it is that they need from it, some stuff. Some people have told me that they listened to my music and got really happy, and I was like, okay, great. And some people said, well, it helped me through periods of like, depression, and I'm like, great, So whatever it is, I'm down. It's good.
I always thought, well, I know I didn't always think, but I was recently thinking about that album, and it, in many ways, it seems to me to be a very modern album, and particularly, well, in many ways, but the title as well, like it's something you hear a lot of people saying, talking about people living rent free in your head. How do you think it has aged?
I don't know. I don't know if it's. I mean, for me, because I always think of an album or any kind of piece of music that I do, or any music at all, that really, I mean, I assume other musicians are the same, as just a piece, a timeless piece, a statement of something, so I never think of it as aging or not. Really, it's just there. Like, I don't know, whatever else you choose to compare it to. I mean, because music's a vibration. But what was your question again?
How do you feel when you look back on it now, I think?
Well, I don't know, because it's I mean, well, because I'm so different now than I was when I did it, so it seems like it doesn't seem to be like a part of me anymore, if you like.
Right.
Yeah, so it seems like something that I did, but it's like, something that is just an entity on its own, really.
And then in 1997, there was the DJ Kicks.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying, and excuse me if I'm wrong, but you weren't particularly a DJ at the time, right?
I wasn't a DJ at all, And so they asked me, well, Stefan, who was working with the K7 at the time, who was like, I think the label head or something, he was like, he asked me to do, because I knew about them and stuff, but I didn't really, think about them other than, just the records and stuff that were coming out. And he asked me to do it, and I was like, okay, why not? But then I had to learn to DJ, so I had to. So a friend of mine who was already DJing kind of taught me how to use decks and stuff, not because of the records so much, because afterwards I got offers to DJ and stuff, and so I had to know how to do it. So, and then I fell in love with DJing. I just love it, but because it's so like making, well, it's the same thing as, well, it's not exactly the same, but I don't know, it's so creative, and then you can really affect people's being with DJing, which I hadn't really thought about. I mean, I love dancing anyway, so that's another thing, but yeah, I really didn't expect to do. I just I just took the idea and ran with it in my own way, and then that's what happened. I started DJing.
Do you still DJ? Do you still dance?
Yeah, oh yeah, I still dance. Yeah, and I still do. Although I haven't DJed for a couple of years, actually, to be honest. But I still dance. Yeah, and I still do. Yeah, I mean, I still go. I mean, I haven't been clubbing for 2 years, but obviously no one has. But I still go out and do stuff like that. I'm usually the oldest person there, but I don't care.
And then in 1999, you set up Early Records. Why did you decide to set up your own label? Was it quite liberating to do? Or?
It was. I mean, well, the idea was more liberating. I think after when I came face to face with the reality of it, I was like, oh, this is fucking difficult. But I well, basically what it was is because I mean I was signed to a major label at that time, and even though it was a really good record deal, you know, in terms of I still felt it was just the situation was too corporate, you know, in the sense that, you know, I just felt that I was losing something, you know, losing something of myself, you know, and that wasn't anybody's fault but mine. But at the end of the day, it just after a while I just got really uncomfortable, and I was signed for 6 albums, and I just didn't want to continue down that road, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I thought what I'd like to do really is create an entity that has that I would feel comfortable kind of like working in, you know. And I don't know if I've succeeded yet, you know, even though it's been a while, because I didn't know what I was taking on really. And I've already started to understand, you know, kind of like the responsibility of it, you know, and what it should be actually. You know, it took me a while because when I first started, I was struggling. Also, I was really like, I was quite sad, you know, at first because I'd left my record deal, and I felt as if I'd failed in a way, even because I hadn't stayed in that situation, and because it'd been something that I'd really wanted, and then I didn't like it when I got there, and so on and so forth. And so I thought, what's wrong with me? Everything, you know, I want, I get it, and then I don't actually. And then when I get there, it's kind of like it doesn't feel, you know, right. And so I was like really hard on myself for quite a while, and then I was struggling to kind of do this record, you know, run this record company and stuff, which was quite difficult. But then I forgot your question again.
No, was it liberating to be
it
on?
Was. Yeah, it was liberating to and when I think about it now, it's actually very liberating. But I think at the time the idea was liberating, and now I feel as if it was liberating because I liberated myself from this idea that things have to be done in a certain way. And also, you know, I put out stuff through it, and I created an entity, you know, basically. I did something quite amazing without actually realizing what I was doing, because I didn't really kind of value myself as much as I do now.
Well, I think this is something for me that's marked everything you've done, a sort of search for like freedom and liberty and basically doing things your own way. Yeah. You know, be it changing musical genres and be it, or, you know, there's a real kind of freedom to your work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think freedom's very important to me, and freedom for everybody is really important to me as well. You know, I think because I think that's our nature, and for me, it's all about, you know, we need to. I mean, we just need to live our true nature, you know, and our true nature is freedom, and so everything that I feel or see that sort of like artificially binds us, basically, I think, well, not everything, but I mean, within my sphere, within my lane, if you like, I think, well, how can I don't really think about it, you know, in a structured way. I do now more because I feel, I don't know, maybe just because I've matured and stuff, but so there's more structure to how I do things. But I always think, you know, how can I create something that kind of like that doesn't believe in this nonsense, you know, that is something that is more akin to the truth. It's like all this kind of like surface living, you know, I'm all for it, but the truth is like just a crack away underneath, you know, and it's like, you know, just we can't really be happy or feel fulfilled or anything unless we are living our truth and living the truth and stuff. And you know, I think one of the fundamental truths about ourselves is that we're free, you know, and we ought to live freely. And that doesn't mean necessarily kind of like being are doing anything aggressive or even rebellious. It can be quietly rebellious, but it means definitely making choices that don't necessarily conform to the consensus. The consensus. Mostly the consensus is being fed to us. And if we stop and think about it, we'll find that a lot of it is just conventions, and not really anything to do with anything true or good or nourishing.
Tell us about Life Loves Us, which was your third album. That is a really remarkable record. That's, again, a very free record, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that. Well, I've been trying to make an album for ages because I was trying to run the label as well. I did have people help every now and again. I'd get, and I didn't do any marketing or anything like that myself because I'm shit at it, and I had no idea how to do it. But I'd been trying to do that album for a really long time, and I'd just been, kind of like putting out a single here and there and stuff. Again, I was just trying to find my way, kind of artistically, after kind of leaving, the paradigm that I'd been in, and kind of the cocoon I'd been in, with Talking Loud and stuff, where there were so many people, basically that were kind of looking after me and kind of taking care of my needs and stuff. And so with Life Loves Us, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I had a bunch of like songs that just started to appear. It was really like the music, for the first time, really, the music started to appear first or appear around the lyrics and stuff. And I was like, the backing tracks, when I say the music, I mean the backing tracks. And I don't know what happened, but I just really wanted to play with the equipment and to play with the sounds. I had like DAT, in those days we had DAT. I don't even know if anyone knows what DATs are nowadays, but I had like DATs full of like just odd noises that I'd gathered from friends or from studio, from studio sessions where, you just hear an odd squeak or hear an odd thump and just think, oh, I love that sound. I just love to play with noises. And I thought I'm really going to just try and use as many as these noises and sounds as I can, and effects. I had like these effects racks and all sorts of things I had. Because then I had my own studio, and then I had all these equipment. I had all this equipment that I'd borrowed from friends and stuff like that as well. So I just started using without really knowing what was going to come of it and stuff. But just seeing, just really just playing with it and stuff. And I think over time and stuff, because the last few songs that I did, I was like, well, if I could start again, I would produce them like this, but I can't now. So you can tell the difference if you listen carefully. You can see like some of them like are better produced than others, and that's because I was learning to produce as I went along, really. And when I got to the end, I was like, okay, this is how. It's not so much like a standard of production. It was more like, this is how I want it to sound, basically. And I didn't really get that till the end. So.
But it's also it feels to me like a very personal record. Like your mum and dad are on it, is that right?
Oh, my dad. Well, one of my dad's songs was on it because my dad lived in Nigeria at the time, so I couldn't actually get into. But also, yeah. So, but my mum's on it. Yeah, she was like speaking our language, which is Igbo. And I wanted because it was there was very much a sense of, for that album, it was a sense of. People have different friends are on it speaking different languages, it's all, and I wanted to tie together this idea of like the oneness of many, how we're all one, and stuff, and how everything is like just part of this big oneness and this part of like this tapestry of community, so there was that idea. And that, because I'm bicultural in the sense of, kind of I've been brought up in two different cultures, that gave me a really strong sense of, there's all these like really interesting differences between people, like culturally and, and so on. But fundamentally, we're all exactly the same. We're all exactly the same. And these differences are really, really interesting and colorful and sweet, but very, very artificial. And I would even go as far as to say that with animals and plants as well, So, so yeah, so that idea kind of really informed the album as well. It was really kind of to create this this feeling of the wholeness of things.
I'm on the crest of a high wave, feeling on top of the world.
Do they like your music, or did they like your music, your mum and dad?
I don't really know, because I've never really asked them. I just assumed that they did. I really think, but they never actually.
I think that's a good assumption.
Yeah, but they never actually said that they liked it or not. And I just assumed that they did, and it didn't really matter to me whether they did or not. I mean, they weren't very happy that I became a musician at first, because I mean, which I understand, because I was really broke at first, and I was really not secure. But yeah, the short answer is I don't know, but hopefully they do.
And you've got a new album coming soon, right?
Yeah, I got a new album coming this year, later this year, and yeah, that's been a long time coming as well. Yeah, so that one is called The Infinitive, and it was supposed to come out in 2016.
Wow.
It didn't. So I've been trying to kind of like get it out since then. Yeah.
And what can we expect from it? So you don't want to give it all away, but
well, I mean, it's kind of like people hear it anyways. Technically speaking, it's mostly a mixture of kind of like upbeat electronica with live instruments. There's a ton of live instruments on it. There's some orchestral stuff on it as well, and there's lots of like. I mean, I worked with like musicians from all over the world with different kinds of instruments. So there's like some of the songs are quite odd, and some of them are more like conventional in the structure. There's lots of layers of vocals in a lot of them, like and then there's a couple that are really simple with just vocals and one instrument, but in general there's a lot of like bouncy electronica with drum and bass tinged, or kind of like sort of techno tinged stuff with lots of layers of live instruments, and some of the live instruments are quite odd as well, and then lots of layers of vocals. And I don't know how you'd call it, because I mean, it's a different sound. It's different from my last song. It's different from my second and my first. And the only commonality I think is the quirkiness that I bring to it, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, I only call it that because I can't think of any other word. And my voice, which is still the same, except I sing a bit higher now.
Looking back on everything you've done, is there one thing you're most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of for myself is my third album, because the more I went along with my albums and music, the more I felt closer to my self-expression, and so sometimes it kind of like it would take me a while to kind of find my self-expression, but the more work I've done, the more I've become close to kind of what I'm trying to do, and hopefully by the time I die, I'd have kind of like come as close as I can possibly. But so that's why I'm excited about this one. That's how I'm always excited about the next one, because it's much closer to what I'm trying to express, which I couldn't put a word to or a description to, but there's something that's just sitting in my belly that kind of like just wants to express itself completely, and I get closer and closer to it. I haven't got completely to it yet, but I'm getting closer every time I do something and put an album out. So the albums really are the expression of me, and any singles and EPs and stuff around it are kind of like pointing to something that is going to be fully expressed in the albums.
And very last thing I want to ask is sort of similar, but if there was one song to play to kind of sum up to people what you did, if you had to explain to I don't know, passerby in the street what it was you did, what song, or what you do, sorry, what song would it be?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, because this, you know, there's so much, and also partly because I've done like quite a bit with other people as well, and I really want to include that as well, because I really feel that those gave me, you know, opportunities to express myself in different ways. But the first song that came to my mind was Dove Song, because I don't know why so many people love that song, you know, because I didn't really think about it at all, but it's just something that it's just kind of like grabbed so many people for reasons that I don't quite understand. So I would nominate that one just because it had this pull. It had this pull that you didn't really expect it, because it's quite angular, you know, and also sweet, you know. So I think that kind of, you know, is one of the things. And I like the fact that, you know, it's a song that the song that I least expected people to like was the one that actually people kind of latched onto. So that's exactly what, for me, being a musician's about, you know, expressing yourself fully and not caring whether people like it, and then they do. That's like brilliant. I love that. It just fills my heart.